The entire world was gripped by the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell, the socialite and right-hand woman of disgraced businessman Jeffrey Epstein. Maxwell was convicted on 5 counts of sex trafficking after a jury determined she played a pivotal role in recruiting and grooming underage girls to be sexually abused by Epstein, who died while in custody awaiting his own trial on similar charges. Maxwell faces up to 65 years behind bars as a result. The jury was composed of 6 men and 6 women, who deliberated for 6 days in total. Their discussion stretched into the holiday weekend because U.S. District Judge Allison Nathan, presiding, was concerned over increasing COVID-19 cases and wanted to avoid a mistrial. By late Wednesday morning, the jury had concluded their deliberations.
We are coming on the air right now with breaking news. A verdict has been reached in the trial of Jeffrey Epstein's former confidant, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Maxwell sat quietly as the verdict was read and seemed to give no real indication of what she was feeling, aside from conferring briefly with one of her lawyers. Although the jury's deliberations took a while, one member claimed that he had decided on his own verdict pretty early on. Scotty David, who served on the jury for the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, has claimed he knew she was a predator after making eye contact with the accused. Speaking to the Daily Mail, David acknowledged that he'd shared his own history with child sex abuse with the other members of the jury, in an effort to help them understand how Maxwell's victims might be feeling. David explained how victims often can't remember all the details of their traumatic experiences, which was a critical point in Maxwell's defense, as her lawyers argued an expert witness was simply presenting a false memory. However, legal experts warned that if David didn't disclose his own history before deliberations took place, Maxwell might be able to demand a mistrial and even get her convictions overturned. Indeed, on January 5th, it was reported that defense lawyers have called for a retrial following David's statements to the press. Potential jurors had to complete a lengthy survey prior to being selected, one of the questions on which related to whether they'd ever been sexually abused themselves. David also revealed he had a clear view of Maxwell throughout the trial and frequently caught her eye. While this juror had clear feelings regarding Maxwell's crimes, others were less sure, and, according to press reports, a few members of the jury were doubtful of the accusers. The issue came with the accounts given by Jane and Carolyn, who were referred to only by their first names during the trial. Some of the jurors reportedly took issue with the fact that the victims seemed to have not remembered every detail of the crimes they were testifying about. However, once the fellow juror David shared his own story of sexual abuse, he was able to help his colleagues better relate to the victims. That wasn't the only dramatic turn in this case, however, as the COVID-19 pandemic almost got in the way of Maxwell's conviction. When the trial first started, the Omicron variant was not as prominent as it was to become. In fact, jurors were not even required to be vaccinated, since the trial took place in New York City as the Omicron variant began to surge. However, things quickly changed. The judge on the case shared, "We now face a higher and escalating risk that the jurors and trial participants may need to quarantine. We are simply in a different place regarding the pandemic than we were a week ago." The jurors missed out on 2 days off because of the uptick in COVID cases. In the end, though, the jurors successfully convicted Maxwell on charges of federal sex trafficking. While not involved in this specific case, Virginia Giuffre, the first victim of Epstein and Maxwell to come forward, applauded the jury's decision. After the conviction, she said, "I hope that today is not the end, but rather another step in justice being served. Maxwell did not act alone. Others must be held accountable. I have faith that they will be." If you or anyone you know has been a victim of sexual assault, help is available. Visit the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network website or contact RAIN's National Helpline at 1-800-656-HOPE 4673.